right, everybody. Thanks for joining us on we've got a special podcast today that will be airing later this week. We are in Avon, Colorado. We are at the Xterra North American Championships. We are joined by a lot of people from Xterra today. And the first guests that we have are Josiah and Sullivan Middaugh that are really just, in my opinion, a perfect example of generational um, uh, enthusiasts when it comes to the sport. Josiah is somebody I've known for over a decade in the sport. If you know anything about Xterra, you know who Josiah is. Unbeatable on certain courses, just in my opinion, one of the man that came to the sport. And then his son Sullivan, was just in elementary school when I was in the sport, and now he is also kind of trying to follow his father's footsteps when it comes to racing Xterra. And we've got them both here, and we wanted to just kind of talk to them and ask them some questions about, I guess, their history in Xterra, and then also where they think Xterra is going now that there has been some ownership change and some leadership change. And really, in my opinion, it's starting to really take off again from what it was, 5 or 6 years ago. So Josiah and Sullivan, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
And as you can see, and as you can see, there's no similarity whatsoever in DNA and looks at all. So all right, so Josiah, talk to us a little bit about, this is your home, like you live here.
Yeah, just over the hill as the crow flies, maybe 2 miles away here.
Yeah. And how long have you lived in Avon?
So 18 years. We moved into our house there when Porter, my second son, was born, right before he was born. We moved to the Vail Valley in 2000. And that's when, my background in Xterra really started when I moved here. I finished a kind of a dismal collegiate running career, moved out here to do an internship, a fitness internship, and just picked up kind of one sport at a time when I moved here. And, super active community, mountain biking is kind of king around here. And so Xterra kind of found me through the environment here.
Awesome. And when was your first Xterra race?
So I raced the Keystone Xterra in 2000. And that was my first race. I think I did the side stroke and the swim, just suffered tremendously on the bike. And suffered even more on the run, even though running was my background. Yeah, I had a bike from the pawn shop there in Avon, and I raced my first race on that bike from the pawn shop, an old rally, hardtail, aluminum mountain bike.
That's funny that you say that. Is there still a pawn shop here?
No, not anymore.
Things have changed quite a bit over the last 18 years, hasn't it?
I actually raced 2 weeks after I bought that bike. I raced the Vail Ultra 100, which is a 100-mile mountain bike race with 13,000 feet of climbing. And I'd never ridden a mountain bike, never ridden any bike over about 20 miles before.
Did it have shocks?
It had a front shock that I don't think really did anything.
Do you remember what kind of bike it was?
It was a rally.
Oh, yeah. That's we're dating ourselves, aren't we?
Yeah, I splurged like $400 for that bike.
So that's awesome. And now, okay, so tell us a little bit about your career in Xterra. Like, you've obviously been very successful with what you're doing, not only on the race course, but off the race course as well. You've got a really powerful coaching platform that you have. You've done just a tremendous amount for the sport and the community. You've been racing 18 years now?
Been racing 23 years now.
23 years. Okay.
Yeah. Racing professionally for 20 years.
Okay. Yeah. And tell us about some of the highs that you've had racing Xterra.
Well, definitely the highlight of my career was 2015, winning the world championship. I had a lot of Xterra national championships under my belt, but had never won the big race. So finally doing that, it's definitely a lifetime dream kind of come true. And throughout my career, though, I wasn't ever, I got into the sport just wanting to see how I could do, and then realizing that, hey, I could, race in the elite race. And then it was, could I be top 10? Could I be top 5? So it wasn't that I wanted to be the best in the world. I just wanted to get better. And that's kind of where I ended up. In 2000, maybe 4, I finished 3rd at the World Championship. And then it was like, oh, hey, maybe I could win this race someday. But I still didn't feel like I had arrived yet. So it took me a whole lot longer than I thought it would.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Sullivan, what was it like growing up watching your dad do all of these things?
I think now
inspired.
I think now I see a little bit more of how big of an opportunity, how awesome it was to see him race. But then it was just kind of life. Like you just would go watch him race, or I don't know. And so there's good travel experience and stuff like that.
Was there a certain point in your life that you can remember where you're like, I want to do this. I want to be like my dad. I want to go race.
I don't remember a certain point, but I was always running, biking, and just kind of following in his footsteps, unknowingly. Yeah.
And okay, so Josiah, you're the parent, you're the dad, right? You probably remember a little bit more of those opportunities in life. Was there a time that you remember when you were like, man, this kid's got it, like he can go for it?
Yeah. So I had intentionally tried to stay pretty hands off with my kids because, well, for one, I didn't want to assume that this was a lifestyle that they'd even be interested in. And, it's not a glamorous, thing. There's not, tons of money in the sport. And so I didn't ever want to kind of make that assumption for them. And they just kind of developed pretty naturally. I didn't ever coach them. They would do the local mountain bike town series because that's what kids their age did around here. Is they would, get a mountain bike, and they didn't, train on it. They would ride to the pool, they'd ride to school, and then they'd do the local town series. And so they were pretty comfortable on trails. But when I knew Sullivan had it, he got injured in high school, and he was always involved in the high school sports. So he did cross country, he did basketball for a while, he did Nordic skiing, and did track. But he got injured running, and so we started biking a little bit together. And it was one day he headed out. He said, I think I'm going to, go for this Strava segment. He had just gotten Strava. And I said, well, that's my segment out there. I don't, it's going to be really hard to come close to, you're going to go as hard as you can, and you're going to be a minute slower. So don't be frustrated. And he went out and took my, like a 9-minute Strava segment uphill. Yeah. It just like blew my doors out, it was like 40 seconds faster or something.
Just crushed Dad.
So I was like, hey, well, you got a good strength to weight ratio. At the time, I think he was, probably 6'2", 135 pounds.
Yeah. Beanpole. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So when was your first professional race, Sullivan?
My first professional race was last year at this race, Xterra Beaver Creek Nationals, and that was the first time racing professionally against my dad in triathlon. Yeah.
Now, 2 years ago, I believe you raced this, and you smoked most of the pro field, if I remember correctly. You were like right in the middle of the pack when it came to like the overall. We did this race a couple of years ago, and Tim Hola and I both were like, oh yeah, like this kid, he's got it, man. Like,
yeah. And so that was kind of the summer that I was injured and was mountain biking quite a bit. Not swimming quite as much, but a little bit more. And so, I raced the age group division, and I had a really good race. I think I was 6th overall in the time overall, but yeah.
So you grew up, Sullivan, watching your dad do this, right? And you have on your own, without pressure from your dad, which I think, Josiah, listening to you a second ago, that's just smart parenting, You know, I think so. We tend to do that with our kids. You know, you just kind of let them find their own way, especially with sports. You know, because it's so hard to constantly want to get out the door. You know, that you really have to like find your own passion for what you're doing. But you know, so Sullivan, you've watched your dad do this growing up. What if is there anything that you want to do different in your professional career than your dad did?
Um, well, I guess I'm on a team called Project Podium, and this team we focus quite a bit on draft legal, and so I think I will have a little bit more focus towards the draft legal than um, mostly off road. I think that that's the big goal, but I think Xterra is what I enjoy. It's the mountain biking, the trail running. The locations are awesome. But yeah, that would be the overarching goal is
Yeah.
maybe the Olympics one day.
Okay, cool. And then maybe even a gravel try.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah, that would be fun.
And how talk to us a little bit about Project Podium because I've heard of that. I don't know a ton about it, but I've heard about it a little bit.
Yeah, Project Podium, it's USA Triathlon's Olympic and Paralympic development team. And so uh, NCAA has women's triathlon Division One, which is a really good kind of route for them to go. And they didn't really have that on the men's side, and the women have had a lot of success on the world stage. I mean, with like Gwen Jorgensen in the Olympics, and not quite so as much with the men. And so this is kind of um, project to push that for the men.
Yeah. Have you been out to Park City to train with them? Because I believe they do a lot of training out in Park City, don't they?
Yeah. So the last 2 summers I've been out in Park City training with them. This year I had quite a bit of travel, so I wasn't in Park City quite as much. But with this race here, I got to come home and train specifically for this race.
Yeah. Now, are you ready for Saturday?
I think so. Yeah. I kind of had to readjust to the altitude, which I'm not really used to since I have lived here for
Oh
18
yeah, yeah,
years.
we're high, man.
But I think I've been here long enough where I'm acclimated and ready to go.
Okay. Now, how long has it been since you've been back? How long does it take to get acclimated to altitude?
Um, I don't know exactly the days, but I think about a week in, like 7 days, I feel pretty good. I got in, I don't know, maybe like the 15th of August or something. So
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, a little over a week ago.
yeah,
I'd say you're coming around, but yeah, something totally different for him since he grew up here. Never, we never mentioned the word altitude. It was just like this is where you live, this is what you do.
yeah.
So yeah, it's a whole new scenario.
So Josiah, this weekend you got to watch. You're coming off of an injury and a foot surgery, correct?
Yeah, we were on a family vacation in the Outer Banks, of North Carolina, and I
That's
was
amazing.
actually Sullivan and his brother Porter were sprinting into the water, kind of racing. So they've been racing each other since they were about 4 years old. And so they're, racing into the water, and I hopped up from my beach chair and said, I'll race you guys. I think I can beat you guys into the water. And we sprint into the water, stepped in a hole, and broke my fifth metatarsal. And pretty bad, displaced and shortened and angulated. So I needed surgery, but I had to wait 2 weeks to get it.
Yeah.
So I had surgery 2 weeks ago and just got out of the splint, which is basically a cast, and now in a boot, but still not able to walk on it.
Yeah. How long will be is there any racing for you the rest of the year, or are you kind of done for the year because of this?
Probably done for the year, unless I find something in the fall. The World Championship in Italy is in 4.5 weeks, so I'll go, but most likely be on the sidelines unless some miraculous healing occurs.
Now, the one question that I wanted to ask you before we ended this segment of the podcast was talk to us a little bit about some of the changes that have been going on in Xterra. Because from an outsider looking in, they've been very positive. Mm-hmm. But you have, you've been a part of the organization, from a racing and professional standpoint for over 2 decades. And so if there's anybody to ask, it's going to be you. Talk to us a little bit about some of those changes and what you think that means for the future of this particular sport.
Yeah, I think it's all very positive, very exciting. When I started racing, Nissan was a big sponsor. There's quite a bit of money in the sport, and they produced a TV show for the World Championship, the National Championship that, got a national syndication. It felt like a really big deal. Every race felt like the World Championship because of international field. The only series was a US series. So we had, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, France, Spain, like all coming to all of these races. And then, they went through some growing pains, but they also expanded globally big time. And so they went through some rough patches there, I think, but I feel like it's really coming back to that. I get the same kind of sense and feeling with this. This is the first year of the World Cup, and every race on this World Cup, and Sullivan will tell you, is like a world championship. I mean, it's 30 deep with super competitive racing. They're doing a really good job with the short track, televising that, and just that vibe, that hype. It's all coming back, and the racing is at a really high level, especially internationally, especially in Europe. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I've been able to watch it, and it's been really cool to see because they, it takes a long time to figure out what you're good at, and we all know that there's always going to be a participation gap when it comes to, or I should say cap, when it comes to, racing Xterra. You can't put 2,000 athletes on a course. And so what do you do with the 400 or 500 athletes that you can put on the course? And I think what they're doing from a short course perspective and turning it into almost like a weekend festival, is not only good for Xterra, but it's good for the sport because it allows for multiple people in a family or a household or a group of friends to come and find some sort of thing that they want to participate in. And so I think that's really cool. So, is it going to be hard for you this weekend to stand by and watch your son race what is your hometown course that you've dominated so many times over and over, or is it going to be kind of cool?
I mean, I'm still really looking forward to the race. I'm really excited just to see how it all plays out. I wish I could be in the mix a little bit there, but I don't know. I'll have the same type of race day nerves, and I'll be really excited to be out there. Yeah. I just might be slow getting from point A to point B.
Sullivan, tell us about your race on Saturday, man. You ready?
Yeah, I'm definitely ready. He actually let me use his bike, which I'm pretty excited about. Yeah, and so I mean, it's my home course. I know it very well. Probably better than most people racing. So
you gonna win?
I'm gonna try my best to. Gotta defend, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Defend the family crown.
Find out.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I appreciate you stopping by today to share some insights and news and things of what's going on in Xterra, specifically in your hometown of Avon, Colorado, at the Beaver Creek Xterra race. So, thanks again, and we'll see you out there on Saturday.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks.
All right, everybody, we're back with our second guest, really third, because we had Josiah and Sullivan earlier. We are joined by Steve Andru, who is the president of North America.
No, Xterra America's tour manager.
Way off.
Way off. I oversee both North and South America for Xterra.
Okay. All right. All right. And this is a new role for you,
This is a new role. Yeah, I came on. It'll be 2 years this upcoming March.
but you've worked for Xterra for 17, 18 years as a subcontractor.
I've been in part working with them off and on since about 17 years. The first Xterra event that I was involved was when my son was born. So he's now 17, just turned 17. So that'll be the first encounter that I had. Is my previous role. I worked in Utah at Snow Basin. And then off and on throughout the years, I contracted various events. And then Xterra approached me. It'll be 2 years in February, asked if I was interested and, help with growth and development, and absolutely. So kind of took on a dream job.
Now, have you been the one that's kind of leading the charge on all this cool, new, exciting stuff that we've seen from Xterra over the last couple of years?
I've been part of the team with that. We got a great global team. We've also got a great regional team. And so it's a collaboration of what we do globally with our, all of our members. As you know, Xterra is broken up into 3 regions. We have the EMEA region. We also have the Asia Pacific region, and we also have the Americas region. And so it's been a collaboration with everybody. How do we work with, with what we already currently have? How do we elevate the brand where we've been, and how do we get to a higher elevated pursuit, which would be like the World Cup that we have going on now? That's been an absolutely great one. The inclusion of more short track. And one of the cool things this year is we brought short track to the Americas for the first time. It's been in Europe, but this last year at Oak Mountain, we had our first short track event. And so that's been great. So there's been a lot of new direction and drive in regards to Xterra. It's not just a triathlon. We also have our trail series. It's now a global trail marathon series that we're doing. But then the inclusion of our World Cup circuit this year for year 1 has been really successful. And just elevating and growing, and again, pushing the brand and elevating and becoming brand, letting folks be aware of what we're doing. So that's been a big push.
Now, you say growing and elevating the brand. Where do you see the brand going in 5 years?
5 years. If you look at it, I would say where I would like to see it is the aspect of people hear of the race, they hear of the term Xterra. If we look at in the Americas, if you ask someone in the Americas, they'll tell me about Xterra. A lot of them first go into, the car and some of those other, things. It's getting that outdoor lifestyle brand first and foremost on people's minds. That with our brand, we have amazing assets, which happen to be the triathlons, that happens to be these trail runs or short track, and some of our other discovery pieces that we do within our Xterra Planet website. And so again, it's letting folks know that who we are, what our vision is, and what our emphasis is number one of our mantras is we protect, we play. And that is something that we take pride in, and getting that awareness to those folks that, hey, you can come out, whether you're a fit age group athlete or someone new, get them involved in the outdoor lifestyle, and then potentially come up and see these elite athletes racing. And so that's really where we're at, is just kind of that really elevating our brand awareness regionally, globally, on all aspects.
One of the things that I've always appreciated and liked about Xterra, and this has been true for 20 years that I've been a part of the sport and racing in the community, is the vibe has never changed.
Yes. Yeah.
It's that same vibe that, road triathlon had 20 years ago. Yeah. And just everyone's nice, everyone's cool, they're competitive, but it's a welcoming community. And you made mention a second ago, and repeat that again. You protect and
we protect, we play, or we play and we protect. And so that goes on various elements. That's, the planet, that's our sustainability, focus we have. It's, getting people outdoors, letting them, get involved in their environment. I mean, it's intriguing to me how many people that live in the outdoors, specifically out west. I mean, you and I talked, we're both from Utah. You look at statistics, how many people get out, they live along the Wasatch Front, but how many get out and actually enjoy the trails? and actually get on the other side of the Wasatch Front. And that's anywhere. Yeah, no matter if we're here, we're in Asia or Taiwan or we're in Europe. There's a lot of folks that don't do that. And so that's a big piece. How do we draw that? How do we get people active and outdoors?
How do you do it?
It's through exactly what we're doing. That's a great question. That is through introduction of this outdoor lifestyle. That's, through our races. That's through our websites, as far as our X discovery pieces we have, that are pieces that showcase lifestyles of just the general people and what they've done to experience life, and how getting out in the community or out in the wilderness helps them. It's encouraging people to take their first Xterra, whether it's a super sprint or it's a sprint short race, but we encourage them and invite them to come out and race, even a 5K. Prime example of that, I'll be honest with you, is look at you just had Sullivan on, and his dad, Josiah. Sullivan used to come when he was just a baby, and his brother Porter would come and race our little kids races, our kids races. They started in that. They bought in, not just because their dad was an elite racer and an amazing human, but the fact they started racing and they got the bug. And then look at what level he's at now. So it's been good to see that progression. And then there's other kids out there that are doing that as well. But it's important for us, for people that, and that's like just one example, but that other kids, like volunteers, they see these athletes coming in. Or you have another example I will use is in Alabama this year. There was this woman that raced every one of our races, from the super sprint, the 10K race, or just, a couple of them. But she volunteered the year before. So I want to do this. I am encouraged by watching these people. It doesn't matter, like you said, it's a fun event. It's different than some of the other series. And this lady felt included, that she wanted to do it. She got off the couch. She started exercising. She started doing stuff and made it a goal to race in our sprint and then our trail run the following day. That was super encouraging to her, and she was like, I want to do the full next year. And I'm bringing my friends into this because what it provides me. I have a goal. And so hearing stories like that, it's like, yeah, that's what it's about. It's, we focus a lot of the elite athletes, and some of that, that's a big piece of ours. That's something where we're proud in the World Cup circuit, but we also focus on the age groupers. We focus on getting those people to buy into what we have, letting them feel, and a big word that's terminology that is passed on currently. I mean, it's the dynamic is exclusive or inclusive. You hear that in a lot of regions, a lot of different fields. We really truly look into that. It's like, we want the focus to be so inclusive that it doesn't matter who you are, you become part of the event. Instead of focusing on the streamline, you have to fit this body mold. You have to be able to, you have to be a heck of a mountain biker, or you have to be a heck of a swimmer or trail runner. Well, come try it. We will have various, whether it's a duathlon, or we have a swim assist category, such as like we had in Alabama. We don't have one here at Beaver Creek, but we had a swim assist where they could wear a tethered buoy. And this, so just opening the doors for people to get out and experience is really what we're trying to focus on.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about this particular weekend, because, Beaver Creek is special in the regards that it's been around for a really, really long time.
Absolutely.
But it's also unique in the regards that it doesn't have a lot of those extra events that you see at other. Is that just restrictions? What is that?
No, so a lot of this is due to, we really want to, this event is a World Cup event as well as a national championship. We look at, the resources, those are there, but we have focused, we still have our sprint race, and then, so it's just triathlon aspect, but then we do have a little kid race happens on, a bike race that we are doing down in Avon Friday night. Again, it's something fun for the kids. A lot of this is focused specifically for the U.S. Championship, and then elevating and focusing on putting energy and efforts into creating this World Cup aspect race, as then also a quality high caliber race for the age groupers. So, you have the super sprint. We also have relay races. So there's still a lot of elements within that registration piece, but it's all lumped into one day.
Yeah. Are any of those decisions based on restrictions of the community, or is it just
you really want to focus on the World Cup and the regional championship aspect of it.
There's really been not a lot of restrictions from the community. In fact, we have amazing community support from both Avon and Beaver Creek.
You would have to, or you
Yeah,
wouldn't
and
be here
so
for as long, right? Like
one of the things we learn, I mean, Avon, Beaver Creek, the Vail Valley in general, they do a wonderful job on events and trails, and you can't have a weekend without some type of structured trail race or I mean, like last week was the Leadville 100 trail run. And so you have that, for instance, and then the Vail Valley Rec District has their races going on all the time. So it's not, we're competitively, focusing upon, hey, we'd like to add more events, but that niche is already taken specifically for this event. And so we don't want to put on an event and compete with somebody that already has something going on a week before, a week after. So, we've looked at it strategically and said, hey, we want to support, and our way of supporting those is not have some of these other ancillary events, so that we're then supporting specifically like the Vail Rec District and their trail races and stuff like that.
So it's definitely a respect aspect of the local community here as well.
100%.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tell us about the level of participation this weekend. How many racers do we have that have registered for Saturday?
As of right now, we're at 416. And so we'll probably we're looking at probably another 20 to 30. So we're aiming for 430. Last minute folks registering. I mean, I don't know if Trey told you, but Leslie Patterson decided last minute that she's racing. And so Leslie's coming on board as of this week, just this last few days. So
that's great.
We got a lot of that coming on.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's a lot of people for Xterra.
It is. It's a good number for us. I mean, that field represents the sprint race, that represents the age groupers, and then the elites. Elites, I believe we're at 32 to 35, anywhere between that. So it's a good field specifically for the age groupers.
Talk to us a little bit about participation levels just overall for 2023. Have you seen growth? Has it been neutralized? Like where is it at?
We're looking at a steady incline, which is absolutely nice. We're finally picking up, and I wouldn't just to say Xterra, but I've talked with other event organizers, other event, companies. It's all a lot of the same. It's like, all right, we had a decline, started decline pre-pandemic, pandemic, kind of neutralized, dropped a little bit, but now we're starting to come out of that. And with us specifically, we are seeing a steady increase. We're seeing more participation. We're seeing more folks coming over from, road triathlon, first-time eventers, and getting a taste of what Xterra is about, or off-road triathlon or cross triathlon, and falling in love with the sport. There's a lot of variance, but a big piece of our, or elevated races our numbers would happen to be just folks that are wanting to change their lifestyles. And like I mentioned, the woman in Alabama, she wanted to do something. And so we're getting a lot of that. And then, so it's really cool to see those numbers start to increase as well.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to, community and what people are looking for. When I look at my history in triathlon and the growth that I experienced as an individual in the sport, particularly with, half Ironman and Ironman racing, it kind of goes back to the vibe and the community that is with that. And, our community on Slowtwitch is very specific to, long distance racing.
Yep.
And they're starting to lose interest in the cookie cutter model that the big gorilla in the room has got. And they're all going back to smaller local races, and more things that are going on with Xterra. And because they want to feel what they felt like when they first started in the sport. And that is excitement and community and, a challenge. And so they're kind of just branching off. And so it's awesome to hear that your numbers are increasing, because that's what my gut tells me, is that, there's this fear that triathlon is decreasing in participation. And what my gut tells me is that that's not true, that those numbers are just not being reported because it's all on a local basis. And
True.
and they just see the shrinking of Ironman events because they had too many of them and they needed to shrink them. But that doesn't mean that there's less participation overall, which as I have these conversations with people like you in the sport in a different area of it, we keep confirming that over and over again, which is great to hear, because we need more grassroots, I call it macro community
Yes.
influence, so that we can get back to the why are we doing this? You
That's
know?
what it's about, right? Why are we
Yeah,
doing it? And it's
yeah,
having something available for everybody.
exactly. Tell us a little bit about the challenges that you've had over the last year and a half since you've been full time with Xterra, because you went from doing some contract work specifically with one event,
Yeah.
and now you're over a lot.
The biggest thing is there's change. I was charged. We need to make some changes, and how do we do that? It's looking at the overall picture. Where do we want to be? Creating an operation plan of setting goals and tasks of where we want to be in 1, 3, 5 years, and sustainable. How do we uh, number one, how do we regrow Xterra in the US and the brand image? How do we take something that was great and make it better? And that is changing locations. That's looking at new processes, collaboration with sports commission, tourism boards. Instead of just going in and creating and producing an event, it's having a partnership and creating partnerships with these tourism boards. That's what the biggest change has been, is coming in and meeting with community members and say, hey, we would like to be part of you guys, be part of your community. How do we do this together? How do we, bring in an event that brings awareness not just to Xterra but equally to your community? That's a big paradigm shift, because in the past we would come in, and any big event organization used to come in, we used to call it the traveling circus. We'd bring a full traveling circus in. You come in, you set up, and then you leave. Well, where's the economic true impact? They may have had the ROI at the time. A measurable result was how many heads and beds. That's what a big piece of that. Now it's, how do you elevate? How do you tell the story of those communities? And that happens truly by a collaboration, because they have a vested interest in bringing in the event, partnering with the event. They have the funding that comes in those events. They see the stories. They're helping with bringing the community and have support and help producing some of the community aspects of the event. So it's a new buy-in. That's been one of the tougher things, is re-elevating Xterra specifically in the United States, and the image of what Xterra was. For years, it was the same thing over and over, which was a very strong brand, but there was not a whole lot of growth and development. And it's now taking that step. And how do we grow? How do we expand into regions? How do we do it sustainable, that we're not just coming in, putting on an event, and then leaving a year or two? How do we how do we really focus on growing that audience so that they are involved, whether it's a volunteer, whether it's a new sponsor or partnership? How do we bring them on board so that they feel part of something that's bigger than just a weekend race with a bunch of awesome triathletes? That has really been the change of our shift within Xterra, and what I've been charged and what I've been working on. So, and I love that challenge. It's been good. And we've got it within the US team. We've got a great group of people within the team. And, it's, again, change is hard in any situation. Didn't really the term rip the Band-Aid off. Well, yes, I come in and rip the Band-Aid off, but it's the support, the drive, the vision has been recepted by community members and potential new locations. For us, it's getting quality races for these age group and the elite athletes, more and more prize purse for elite athletes, but also elevating new regions for age groupers, because they are just as equally important to Xterra and the brand, even more so than the elites. I love the elites, and it's a great field what we have, but we need age groupers to support that as well, so that they have the family or aspect that you talked about. It's that community, it's that vibe. Elites are great. They have their vibe, wonderful folks, but the support around that is that, it's that age grouper, because then the elites are elevated because they're like, God, for instance, there's Josiah, there's, Susie Snyder, all those people, they become rock stars in their own realm. But the age groupers, hey, I get a race with these folks on these weekends. And so that has been a big shift. That's kind of been the focus, but it's now elevating that and growing new regions and spreading it out throughout the U.S., throughout Canada, elevating our races in Canada. We have a great new event within North America next year. And we had it this year as a small inaugural event, which is in Puerto Rico, part of the U.S. Absolutely beautiful, stunning area down there. It's like, I went down for a site visit and met with the organizer, went through everything. I'm like, oh my God, this is cool and what they're trying to do. And so trying to get more of those type of races as well.
How many races currently are in North America?
Within Canada and the US, there are a total of 18 races total. So, I mean, those are quality. We really want to try and expand more. Years ago, we looked at, there's a lot of revamp. Again, looking at the same model, like what you talked about, you have a ton of models, more quantity versus quality, refocusing on that vision. It started a few years ago. It's now refining more and bringing more races back into the fold, but with this mindset of that collaboration of community and make it a quality event. And that's through branding, that's through activations, that's through the festival component. So number one focus is not the race itself, but what happens around the race. So the community members can come in, they feel part of Xterra, whether it's just through our concerts or the festivals, the after party, the welcome dinners, all of those pieces, and then introduce them to the athletes, and the athletes get to be part of the community as well. And so then it's that meshing of community athlete presentation. So that is really the new dynamic and getting where we want to be with all these events.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, last question, Steve. If I'm going to register for a race next year in North America, which one do I do?
Can I give you three?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So it's hard to say one. We have a lot of key races. I honestly, in North America specifically, I could even go into our South America region because we've got, oh my God, we just brought on Costa Rica again. So we just did a press release with them. I'll stay in North America. For me personally, where I will be supporting and elevating these races, again, we have a bunch of quality races, but we have some that are really taking to the next level. The first would be Oak Mountain, May 16th through 19th next year. Won't spill the beans yet, but it will be a championship race next year. We'll make that announcement on September 6th. So Oak Mountain, Alabama. Then the next two, it's a tie. So second place would be Whistler. The Whistler event is absolutely amazing. Our race director up there does a wonderful job, and he and his team and the production company that produces that event put on a full high quality race. Not to mention that Whistler is a hell of a destination, and their trail systems are they have great community support, and that's even growing. And so to see that buy-in would be my number two. And then the third would be a tie between Quebec, Canada, up at Lake de Lac, and then Puerto Rico. So I would say four, but that's the order. Okay. And for me personally, I think the number one would be Whistler. I have to say Oak Mountain because I have a lot invested. I love that event. It's a high quality event. But as far as where I get to go travel to in North America, those would be the ones.
Awesome. Well, Steve, thanks so much for taking the time today.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
We're excited to be here and to race on Saturday and just be able to participate in all of the goodness that you guys provide. So,
well, thank you for having me, and good luck.
Thanks. All right, we're back. We are with Susie Snyder right now, who is the reigning, it's the U.S. Elite National Champion of Xterra. And you're also one of the overall winners of this particular course as well, a couple of years ago, correct?
One time, only once. Yeah.
But there's always the future.
True.
The Saturday.
That's right. And I'm hoping for another one.
How are you feeling?
To be honest, I have a little bit of, freshening up to do still. But, some openers and maybe a little massage should come around. got a few days, so I'm not worrying quite yet.
So you're feeling pretty good.
I'm feeling good. I had a good training block since like, I don't know, I guess the end of June after Belgium. It was really nice to be home for a good chunk of time and actually be able to train hard and, train on your own terrain and actually the race course for the one that was coming up next. Like, doesn't get it any better than that. Some local races here and there for intensity, and it's just been a great, 6 weeks or so.
Yeah. Susie, tell us a little bit about yourself for our listeners. Like, where are you from? How long you been doing Xterra? Just give us the background here.
Yeah. I grew up in upstate New York, so country girl, very far from the city. I was like a track and cross country runner in high school, and went to college in Western Mass at Springfield College, track cross country. Towards the end of my time there, I think maybe my junior year, I was starting to get a little nervous about what I was going to do after college, since, I had a sport and a team all my life and didn't know what I would do without it. So I was lifeguarding during the summers at a little state park in upstate New York. And one of my lifeguard buddies had started doing Xterra, and he had stories upon stories and war wounds. And for some reason, I thought it sounded like fun. So, and then we actually hosted a race, the Sky High event. And I went and talked to the race director because, we helped put it on. And I was like, this looks really cool. I didn't know a thing about mountain biking. So I went and talked to the race director. Turned out he was a friend of my dad's who lived a mile up the road from me. And his wife was pregnant. So he let me borrow her mountain bike, gave it a try, literally just put my running shoes on top of those Shimano SBD pedals, which didn't work real well. I fell all over the rocks and was bleeding, and it's kind of a disaster, but I loved it. So, and I was a good swimmer and runner. So I was like, what the heck? I'll give it a try. Went to my first race in Hartford, Connecticut, which was kind of an inside out Xterra. It was a downriver swim. And then we ran back to the park and finished on the mountain bike. And I was falling all over the place, but I was good enough that I could just muscle my way through, and I took second. So I was like, oh, maybe I could be good at this. And so I was just kind of hooked and just kept racing and got better and better, and went pro in 2010. Had some ups and downs along the way, but have had a bit of success, and just, I guess I've made so many friends into family that I can't imagine stopping. And of course, now I'm 20 years in, and I'm like, well, I can't do this forever, but I don't want to leave my friends. So yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I learned about in your bio was how you gave credit to just kind of winging it for a while.
Yeah.
What was the biggest lesson that you learned, like the hard lesson that you learned at one point?
You can't go hard every day. Man, at one point, I was so run down and burnt out. Like, I thought I had mono. I just was tanked. And I was doing an internship in strength and conditioning in Colorado Springs. I was like, I think I was in grad school. And, I'm asking him, like, I just can't do anything. Like, so he's given me the 20 questions, and he's like, you're just burnt out. You're overtrained. It's like, what do you mean? No way. I was like, I should know this because I'm a strength coach, but certain things you just are hard to see in yourself. And that's sort of when I learned I should probably have a coach and not coach myself, because I need an outside perspective, because I just push myself too hard and I need somebody to hold me back primarily.
Yeah. Now, okay. So when did you get a coach, and who was your coach?
I think my first coach was Dominic Gillen, who was an Xterra racer in 2008 or 9, I think, was when I had moved to Connecticut. So,
And did you instantly start seeing some better results at that point? What was different?
yeah, well, I think it was earlier than that, actually. It was probably 2007 or 8. Yeah, I think just more structure. Like, hard days were hard, intervals, certain targets, stuff like that. Easy days were easy. And if I didn't go easy enough, he made sure to tell me, like, hey, you can't go hard on your hard days if you're not going easy enough. So just having somebody looking at your data. And there wasn't a lot of data back then, because I think maybe that's when I got my first heart rate monitor. Even there was no power meters.
Yeah, it was basically all heart rate back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think the first heart rate monitor I had was like, I won it at a race. So yeah, it took me some time to get used to having a coach and make that change, but it was definitely a good change.
Now, you've been a part of the Xterra family for 20 years.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest impact that it has had on your life?
Probably just knowing that they're friends for life. Like, I've moved around a lot, and no matter where I go, no matter if I keep racing or don't keep racing, those Xterra friends that I've made in the last 20 years are always there. And like, I ran into a woman a couple weeks ago at a local race, a gravel race, and I was standing behind her in the food truck line, and we were both kind of looking at each other like, I think I know you, but I can't figure out how. And finally she said, what's your name? Because I think I know you, but I can't figure out. And I told her, and she goes, Xterra! You used to race Xterra. You were friends with Julie. And I was like, Kathy, you're Kathy. And it was like, and then we went and chatted for an hour. And same, like, it's stuff like that. Everybody is so friendly, and just like, you can not talk for years, but then act like that time had never passed when you do see them.
Yeah, we were talking with Steve earlier about the difference in the community here. And, that's something I've always admired. And I was telling him that is, the community and the vibe has never changed in the 22 years that I've been associated with triathlon, and particularly, being able to compare it from like road triathlon and Xterra. It's never wavered. It's always been this small, close-knit, welcoming community, no matter what was going on from a global expansion or anything. And no matter where I'm at with a race, it's always that same feeling as well. Whether I'm in Utah, whether I go to Hawaii, whether I go to Alabama. I haven't been to any of the European Xterras, but I've heard that it's all the same regardless of where you go.
Yeah.
Which is pretty unique. Particularly with something that has, survived 20 years of being in existence. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you just recently moved up to Avon, correct?
Right. About a year ago.
How long have you been here for?
Just under a year. I was kind of I had just started moving up here around mid-July last year.
So knowing that you've won this race before, you live here now, do you think do you have home court's advantage now?
I would like to think so, but yeah, I don't know if there's a whole lot of advantage, because it's not very technical. So
Tell that to Josiah.
I think I would like to think so, partly that helps give you confidence, right? So one of the most important things going into race day is being confident. I do know the course. I know that I'm adjusted to the altitude. So that's not a factor that a lot of people have in their head when they come here, because 8,000 plus feet is
Legit.
yeah.
It's high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't really have to worry about that. I just have to go do what I do and focus on the process of having my own best race. And if that brings the win, then awesome. If it doesn't, then if I had my best race, then I can't be unhappy. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm doing the race on Saturday. I will be finishing probably 30 to 45 minutes behind you. Give me some pointers on this course. Like, when are you going to push it? When are you going to bring it? Or do you just push the whole time? Like, there's got to be some spots where you're just like, oh, I got this. This is where I go. Like, tell me about that.
yeah. Let's see. For starters, hold back a little in the swim, because swimming at 7,500 feet hits you like
I
a
always
ton of
hold back
bricks.
on the swim anyways. So you don't have to worry about that.
Okay, good. Because you get hypoxic real fast.
Yes.
Yeah, get out on the bike, like hammer that road section on the bike, because it's free speed, right?
Yeah.
Pavement's
Yeah.
fast.
Yep.
Pass a bunch of people before you hit the single track, because once you get on single track,
It's tough.
it's pretty good as far as width goes and being able to pass, especially early on up towards the top. It gets a little narrower, but yeah, pass as many people as you can early on if you're not a really strong swimmer. Pace yourself a little bit on that first climb, because it's a good 20-25 minutes of pretty steep sections. And then Apache, super fun. Just have fun, enjoy the downhill, recover. Eat early, get some calories in your system, either on that road or while climbing you, if possible. But then, yeah, recover on the downhill, have fun with it, because it is super fun. And then village to village, it's kind of a grinder climb. It's like
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
gravelly.
I think I dropped the F-bomb a couple of times 2 years ago when I did this race again, where I just kind of forgot like how steep it was. And you've been going for, at least I had been going for like an hour already. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, really? Like, more of this?
Yeah. Well, then you get the flat section of village to village. So I'd say, you can get some nutrition in on that section, especially early, because it's smoother. Because later on village to village, it gets a little bit rocky and rough, and I don't really like taking my hands off at that point. So I like to get some nutrition in early, and hammer that flat section, because it's flat. So, and if you need to pass people, you can, get around pretty easily there. And then you hit Dally and climb again. So settle in, find your rhythm, drink, get ready for the run, basically, because corkscrew is fairly quick descent. Need to have some calories in you too to keep your wits about you, because it's probably the more technical descent of.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, if you've never done this race, like you're literally going down what would probably be like a black diamond ski, and you're just on these like S curves.
And it's a little rutted and rocky and rooty,
big time.
and
Yeah.
some blind corners because the weeds are tall. And
Uh-huh.
like, I've even ridden it, a whole bunch of times by now. And there's this one corner that it's got real tall weeds and you can't see around it. And I'm like, is this the corner that has that rock and I always scrub too much speed. And then I'm like, oh shoot. And I have to like crank out.
I say, oh shit, but that's fine.
I do too. But so yeah, keep your wits about you on corkscrew, but stay relaxed. And because you ride better when you're relaxed. When you're all tense, you just make mistakes and end up going slower. So let it flow. And then, yeah, come out of T2 and find your rhythm, find some pace. It's a hard start to the run, you know. It's steep, it's hot, it feels humid in those switchbacks.
Do
to
they
me.
still take us to the left side of the finish line? So you get out of
Yep.
T2 and then you go left and you're flat for a little bit and then you just go straight up that like tight single trail
Yeah.
that just never seems to. It's like a mile
Yeah.
and a half up too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My goal this year is to not walk any of that section.
That's hard.
But yeah, I know. I know. I'm going to run really, really slow. I mean, like jog really, really slow. But I
Yeah.
think maybe I can do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Probably
if you're
won't.
strong, you can do it. It's sort of a matter of like,
So wait, do you walk some of that section?
depends on how I feel.
Okay. You're starting to make me feel better about my past here at the course.
I think there are more races that I have walked some of those switchbacks
Okay.
than years I've run the whole thing. I think maybe only once or twice I've actually run the whole thing.
When you won it here overall, did you walk or run that section?
That was 19. I can't remember, to be honest.
Maybe that's why you won overall.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe
it was just all a blur in the red from start.
Yeah. It's one of those things that, you know, if you take it down to a walk, and sometimes all I need to do is just like power hike just the switchback. And then it flattens out a little bit, and just power hiking that switchback can keep your heart rate just low enough that you can start to run again as you come around the corner. So you can actually be faster that way if you manage your effort well. Whereas sometimes if I try to run the whole thing, my heart rate just gets so high that I'm just going slower than if I were, hike running.
Yeah, exactly.
So it sort of depends on personal preference and how you feel. And sometimes just staying in the running rhythm helps you like maintain that. It doesn't change your breathing pattern or heart rate as much. So it can feel better. Like I know Josiah is anti-walk. He's like, I'll run everything because it keeps me in the rhythm. But with me, it kind of depends too. I have vocal cord dysfunction, and some days it's more of a problem and a limiter than others. And so some days I just have to get my heart rate down and control my vocal cords a little bit.
Wait, you have what? What is this?
Yeah, vocal cord dysfunction, to where
Explain that.
So when my effort goes up, my vocal cords constrict. So I guess it's kind of like asthma, where your airway narrows, or essentially it narrows your airway. So it's
maybe that's what I have all the time.
if you can't get a good breath in, that's probably it.
So, okay, so when you go really, really hard, sometimes your throat starts to close up.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so how hot? Like, all right, talk to us a little bit about how you manage that, because it's
not very common.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
Like that's something to like. Wow, you got to deal with that. That's challenging.
Yeah, it's basically threshold effort where it starts becoming a problem. Altitude doesn't help, so I have to really manage my effort. I can do like short bursts, but then I kind of have to settle in, and diaphragm breathing is my best friend. Because the more I get in my chest, the more my vocal cords just want to seize up.
Yeah. Is there an inhaler that you can use or anything like that?
Nope.
No.
Nothing.
Just manage the pain.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just have to focus on, I kind of visualize like pushing my throat and vocal cords open.
Mm-hmm.
And like pursed lip breathing helps. Diaphragm breathing helps. It's hard to do those things when you're trying to go fast. So by the end of a race, I am pretty mentally exhausted even more than physically sometimes, because I just have to focus so much on just my body and trying to get my body to do what I want it to do.
Yeah.
And then if I do have like a full blown episode where I start wheezing and they close up, then I usually have to bring it down to a walk and just focus on breathing, and then try to get it under control.
How long does that take? 30 seconds, couple minutes?
Probably a good minute, 30 seconds to a minute. It depends if I let it get really out of control. In Alabama, I was pushing really hard on the run, and yeah, got a little out of control. So I struggled from about halfway through the run to the end, because once it happens, I can slow down, control it. But then once I start running again, if my heart rate gets to a certain point, it just back to. So it's
And I'm sure like at what point does your heart rate need to get before like if I go any higher than this, I'm screwed?
Yeah, usually it's about threshold, or if I go over threshold, I know that's danger zone.
Yeah.
So I've got to keep those efforts pretty short.
Yeah, considering the fact that there's 3,000 feet of elevation climb just on the bike.
Yeah.
Here. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And when did you discover this? Like how did you discover this?
Yeah, well, when I was in high school running cross country, it started, and the doctors told me that it was exercise-induced asthma. They gave me an inhaler, and
I got that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Which I was just overweight, but
well, I wasn't, but it wasn't asthma either, because I took the inhaler, and at first I thought it helped because, I'd start wheezing, I would stop, take the inhaler, and then 30 seconds, a minute later, I was good. I could run again. But it turns out it was just the actual stopping and breathing that settled it down. It wasn't the inhaler, because, after a while you get complacent and you're just like, or you don't have an episode. So I just stopped carrying the inhaler, and then it happens, of course. So I'd stop and walk and it would calm down. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have the inhaler. That's weird. So it took, and it comes and goes. It's weird. Some days it's really bad, and then I won't have an episode for a while, and there's really no pattern. Except once I start having them, I tend to have them more. So, it's just kind of trial and error. And then in 2017, I was at ITU Cross Tri Worlds in Penticton, and I'd been having some heart rate weird, like tachycardia too. And in the swim, I felt my heart go tachycardia, and then that set off my vocal cords, and I nearly drowned, but got myself under control, got out of the water, got on the bike, and it was just, my heart rate was like 205. I couldn't breathe. I had to stop and get off the bike and actually like sit on the ground to get it under control. And then I managed to finish, but I walked a lot of the run, because every time I started running again, my heart rate would shoot up. So I think I finished almost dead last in that race, where people were talking about me being a favorite to win. So that was a pretty tough pill to swallow. And it worried me, because I was like, well, is this dangerous? Should I be worried about, so I went to cardiologist, and they implanted this little loop recorder under my skin so I could track my heart rate all the time. And when I had an episode, they could look at the rhythm and see if it was normal or problem, whatever. Told me not a problem. Okay. So I just keep doing what I'm doing. But the vocal cord stuff kept happening, and I was like, well, I have to get this figured out. And through talking to people and research, and I found a triathlete who had similar symptoms, and she found this doctor in Denver who diagnosed her with vocal cord dysfunction. So I tracked him down and talked to him on the phone, And he was like, well, take some video of yourself on your next workout when it happens so I can hear your breathing. So I did that, sent it to him, and he goes, oh yeah, sounds like a lot like it. So, but if you want to come to Denver, I can like actually put the scope down your throat and look at your vocal cords and see if, just confirm it. So I did that, and got on the exercise bike. He put this scope down my throat, and sure enough, like I could see it. It was crazy.
Wow.
So since then, I'm like, well, I guess at least now I know what it is.
Yeah, which is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's so frustrating, right? Like if I've had all sorts of, I talked about this in an article just last week on the homepage, and that is, getting back into, a physical fitness level. And, like our parents always said, as soon as I hit 40, like shit just went downhill for me. And a lot of it has to do with not that I turned 40, but the timing in my life of when I hit 40. And, we went through COVID and all of those things. Right. And, and I've been super busy at work and I got married and all wonderful things, but just things that cause a lot of stress in your life. And so, trying to get back into fitness and on a regular routine, you go through so many things where you're just like, what is wrong with, my leg today, and I was injured for probably a good 9 months just because I had a super, super tight psoas and, relearning like how to sit during the day and get up and do stretches. But it took me 9 months to figure that out, and then once I figured out what it was, within a month, it was manageable.
Right.
And I was able to get back into, and so even though I'm, very slow to what I used to be, now I'm on this track where I'm getting back to where I used to be. And it's awesome. Like I did my first triathlon in 2 years last weekend. And when I was out on the bike, I had this moment where I was just like, this is awesome. Like, I get to do this again, and I'm not injured. And, the next day I was sore, but I was able to go out on a bike ride again. And I was just like, this is rad, and so finding out, having those big issues where you're just like, oh, what is this? But then getting that answer makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
But I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, it's not terribly common. Like I feel like I've recently been hearing a little bit more about it, or hear that more people are discovering they have it. I don't know if it's just once you know about it, you become more aware of it, or if it's just becoming more well-known, or I don't know what it is, but yeah, stress is definitely a trigger. And of course, racing is stressful. So how convenient.
Yeah.
But yeah, just being aware helps, control it and be mindful of, all right, what do I need to do to keep it in check? And, the faster you want to go, unfortunately, the worse it is. So sometimes I just have to remind myself that no matter how fast I go, no matter where I finish, I get to do this thing that I really enjoy. Yeah. And it's about being out here doing it and still doing pretty well.
You're doing awesome. Are you kidding me?
I get frustrated. I have high standards, but
you can't win all the time.
I can't win all the time. And
even though you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. I'm probably more grateful than ever that I just still get to be out here doing it. So.
Speaking of winning, you going to win on Saturday? What's your take?
Well, I'm going to do my best.
That's what Josiah's kid told me.
Yeah.
No, come on.
We know at this point to be.
Yeah. I hear you. You don't want to. Yep. Yep.
Putting pressure on myself to win doesn't help me win. So,
Okay, but you feel good. You're a little nervous, but you feel good about Saturday. Tell us really quick about the rest of the year for you post this race. What else you got going on? Are you going to the World Championships
yep.
in Italy?
Yep.
I'm so jealous.
Going to Worlds.
Next year, I'm going to go.
Yeah. Hoping for better weather this year. If it rains all week again, I'll be a little bit disappointed.
Very sad.
But yeah, hoping to finish off with a strong race at Worlds. And then, let's see, after that, October, Mike and I are going to Bentonville for about 10 days to check out all the hype. And so we're going to do Little Sugar, 100K mountain bike. And then the next weekend is Big Sugar 100-mile gravel. So
Yeah.
we're
Awesome.
that's kind of my fun outside the box race for the year.
That's rad.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, thanks so much, Susie, for taking the time to join us today. That concludes our podcast for today. Thanks for everybody for joining. Hope you guys learned a little bit more about Xterra, some of the professionals that have helped build it, along with the new management that is taking it into the next level of what Xterra is going to be over the next decade or so. Everybody have a good one, and we will see you next week.